Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today I would like to discuss with my fellow Resident Evil fans what unlockables we want to see in Resident Evil 9 Requiem. So this started off because initially I was like, I don't think, and please let me know if I'm wrong, I was fairly certain I was correct, I even looked it up, but I'm fairly certain we've never had a Resident Evil game do weapon skins. And in either the pre-orders or the deluxe edition. If you get the deluxe, I assume you get everything anyway. But somewhere in there are weapon skins where it's literally just, change the color of the weapon. And to the best of my knowledge, including looking this up, even though, AI does it. If you ever look things up on AI, by the way, don't always assume it's correct, because sometimes, make sure there's links. It's like Wikipedia. You can just type whatever you want. AI will just say stuff. And then it's like, okay, it said that we'd had weapon skins, and then it literally didn't show a single game. And I'm like, I think I know more than AI on this one. So in case I'm incorrect, please let me know. But as far as I'm aware, we've never had weapon skins for weapons in Resident Evil. Now, we've had upgrades for weapons. I think the closest we'd probably get to straight up weapon skins would probably be from the Revelations games because of, raid mode and that. But outside of that, there's not a game I can think of where we've ever had skins. Like I said, you get upgrades to weapons and it'll be like a variation to it. Once again, that's mostly raid mode, where it'll be like, this gun does this and it's kind of this, but it's silver now and has these, these components to it. But outside of that, we haven't had weapon skins. And it made me think, okay, well, what are the upgrades that we're going to be doing in this game? Like, what other things are going to be changing? And then that made me realize, I just want to talk about unlockables. Let's just talk about the things that we want to see as the bonus content to the game. We've had all the leaks. We have all the theories that we can throw out there. We have all the actual things that we will get story-wise, location-wise, character-wise. So let's do something sillier and just talk about the fun stuff. Because I mentioned, I think in the last episode I did, that one of the things I would love for them to do for Resident Evil 9 is to make that little chainsaw we saw at the, in the Leon demo, make that an unlockable weapon. Make it an unlockable weapon that we can get. I would make it something that you get after beating the game, because it would be, admittedly kind of crazy to make it like canonical, but at the same time, what difference does it make? It's weapons. It's guns. Like, I mean, canon is buying guns from the effing merchant, and it's like, okay, sure. So it wouldn't really make a difference, but it seemed like something that would be more of an unlockable, because I would assume the chainsaw is more of a counterattack. So I think it would also be super cool, because it would be in the vein of Bayonetta, where it's like, hey, if you do this, this, and this, you can unlock things that were like temporary weapons during the main campaign, and then you can just unlock them as a straight up weapon. So I would love to see that for RE9, is us getting that chainsaw as a permanent weapon if we just toss it in, as, I don't know, gas or whatever. But like I said, so far, we don't know. I'm avoiding as much as I can. I don't know if I'm even going to look at any extra trailers. I know there was something recent that came out. I'm not even looking at it. Honestly, I've never stayed away from trailers more than I have with this Resident Evil. And it was like, hey, I got the Leon thing. And of course, that was after all the leaks anyway, unfortunately. And I didn't look into them, but it was, it was happening so much, I figured it was real. And then, of course, it was, made official by the TGA trailer. But outside of that, maybe I'll check out the launch trailer, but I don't really want to see that. I don't want to see like whatever the footage was. I know it shows like Grace walking through a city, and is like, it shows, it's like that portion that we saw in the demo or in the trailer, it's her actually going through the city. I was like, nope, don't want to see it, don't want to know. I don't want to have any clue where anything is in relation to anything else. But unlockable wise, cheat wise, all the silly fun stuff that I personally love from Resident Evil, I think there's a lot of potential. One of my favorite things, and I say this not only because of the weapon skins, because that was something where I was like, oh, they've never done that before. That's unique. Like, it's a simple thing. We've had upgrades to weapons, like I said, starting, honestly, not even with just RE4. Technically, we've had that even before that. You buy them in RE4 where it's like, okay, you're actually making direct choices, like, all right, I want ammo or reload or capacity. Well, I guess that would be the ammo, firepower, all that stuff. But we've had weapons that get, minute upgrades. You have just ammo upgrades if you're going like Resident Evil 3 with the, the reloading tool. And then RE2 has little components, although I can't remember if that was in the original, kind of like they did in the remake where Claire gets like the enhanced gun. I don't believe that's in the original. It's just the single action army. But at least starting in 3, you have that. Then of course you have like the extra weapons when you fight Nemesis. You get the, I always call it the Killer 7, because the Killer 7 from RE4 is the same gun. So you get that. You get basically the skull shaker as well. I'm realizing now what I remember is the last episode I didn't put up, so don't worry about that because I said all this stuff in that episode, but that's not coming out for a long time, so don't worry. But you get those weapons, so you get parts and upgrades and stuff, and now it's just kind of a natural part of the franchise where it's like, hey, you buy this gun, you upgrade it. And the weapon skins I thought were new, and I was like, that's an interesting touch. It makes it feel like there's going to be newer customization. Also, I would love to see it if the customization actually affects the weapons more. I think that would be really cool. That's something, if you go with more action-oriented games, Call of Duty and stuff does that sort of thing where you change something and it's like, oh, you actually see the scope change. Aside from, RE4 putting on the actual scopes for guns, they didn't really have that, and the laser sight, of course. But I would love to see it if it was like, hey, you get extended mags and like the gun like really changes around. I don't think it'll be too crazy, but we've had little things here and there, and with them adding the actual weapon skins, it makes me wonder if, they're gonna do a little bit more with that. But aside from that, one of the things that I haven't really seen anyone talking about is the fact that one of Leon's costumes, and you can check this out, it's in the, once again, deluxe edition / pre-order stuff. One of his alternate costumes is from the movies. And I want to say it's got to be from the last one. Like the weird, was it the series one that they did where it was a movie but they split into 4 episodes for some weird reason on Netflix. It was either that one or it was the one like right before that where he had that specific blue suit, and it was like, that's crazy. They've never done that before. And so that makes me think about, once again, going into the Unlockables. Are we going to see Resident Evil 2 Leon again? I just want to throw that question out there. I'd be fine if we didn't. Personal opinion. I do like the remake costume. I think it's cool, but it's also the RPD costume. If I had to pick, I'm going to pick, his 4 costume over his 2 costume any day of the week. I would also love it if we got the 4 costume, if they made it where you could do it just like in RE4, where it's like, hey, you can unlock the costume, but also you can take the jacket off. That would be super cool. I don't know if we should expect that, but that, once again, that would be a cool unlockable. If they did both, that would also be very cool. And typically, what they've done, at least when they actually give a crap, RE3 is the only example where they don't, but typically, 2 and 4 have shown this. The remakes come out, even with the deluxe edition, it's like, hey, here's all these costumes, but you still unlock other stuff in the main campaign. So you typically get extra stuff. I think the remake for 2 only had a couple of costumes. I think it had 2 apiece. If I'm not mistaken, it was their PS1 original style costumes, and then the more, like the remake versions of their original costume. So you got like Classic Claire, Classic Leon, and then PS1 Claire and PS1 Leon, which I know I've mentioned this before. They need to do that for every Resident Evil. I don't know why they don't. That is something I want to see. Like, I know that the games look realistic and all that. Who gives a crap? I want the PS1 characters back. They did the entire cast in Resident Evil 6, and they just have like not touched that as an element ever since. Like, I understand not doing it for 7 and 8 because they're first person, and you do it for like what, 2.5 seconds for Chris at the end of 7, and in 8 you'd see it a bit more, and technically you do play as him, but once again it's all first person, although that's obviously different now. But we need that back. When they did that in the RE2 remake, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I was super happy with that. I wish they did it for all the characters just like they did in 6. I would have loved to have seen Ada have that, which technically, and this is another, I know it's on a different engine, so they'd have to redo all that stuff, but we have had that before. In RE6, when they did the old versions of all the characters in their PS1 style, they were in their old costumes. If a character had a classic costume, it was their first appearance costume. It wasn't the RE6 costume done in a PS1 style. It was like their PS1 original costume, like Sherry's costume, her, like, I guess the schoolgirl, the sailor outfit, because it was, a Japanese company making a game set in the U.S., but she had a, Japanese schoolgirl uniform. So it was that costume in the PS1 style, which I think looks a lot better than, the RE6 version, where it's like, I don't know how I feel about that 100%. Still think about that sometimes, like, I don't know. I don't know about that one. I just don't know 100%. But I would love some PS1 style costumes. Like, I mean, I guess it would be PS2 if we did it for Alyssa, so she would kind of just look low res, but the game doesn't look that ugly. Realistically, the graphics were still pretty good. When you look back at the Outbreak games, it's like the character models aren't that bad, realistically speaking. But I would love some blocky PlayStation models. I mean, for RE6, they did make brand new ones for all the newer characters. So Helena and Piers, they had like their RE6 costumes because that's all they had. That was their first appearance. Jake, same thing. So they could totally do that again. I'd be more than happy. I would love to see that. I wouldn't be shocked if Grace ends up getting an Alyssa costume. That's almost like guaranteed. Once again, this is the if she's dead, if she's not dead type of thing, but I hope she's not. But it just makes perfect sense. An alternate costume. If they're doing Lady D as just a random thing because they're like, horny people will buy it, then they should do like a cool thing where it's like, hey, people that care about the franchise will want this costume. You beat the game and then it's like, surprise, you get like Alyssa's suit from Outbreak. And then Grace can run around in that all day. That would be awesome. I would love to see that. That would definitely be amazing. Once again, with Leon showing up, if there are other characters, there's been the theory that Sherry's the person that was actually talking to Leon and not Hunnigan. That would be great. If she actually has like a legit appearance, give her a classic. I mean, heck, if you want to, give her her RE6 costume. I actually never thought the costume, say what you will, when it comes to RE6. I never thought Sherry's, like, especially her winter costume, I think was the best one. Like, her costume was basically the same all the way through because they gave her like the tan shirt and then she had like the blue bandana or whatever. But like the winter section where she had like the white jacket, that's probably my favorite look for her throughout the whole game. For some reason, I just thought that really fit her character. Maybe it's, just the design and how she looks as a character, like just the lighter outfit just worked a lot. And I thought the jacket looked cooler than, her having like the white button up. But I would love to see that. That would be super cool if they did, the multiple variations if they wanted to. Like, hey, here's, if Sherry is in it, of course. And if she plays an important role, that would be pretty nice. Just be like, hey, here, let's just throw it in there. Once again, random, crazy unlockables. I would also love to see some old weapons come back. We got some new stuff. We have like this special Magnum that seems to be shared between both Leon and Grace. I'm curious how that's going to play out. Once again, that leads into the newer, what I think is going to end up being a newer level of customization for the franchise, or at least for this game. We'll see if they carry it on. If people like it, they'll probably keep it. If they don't, it'll be gone. But we'll see what happens with that. But I would love to see some older weapons come back. Like if they're like, all right, well, once again, we got Leon. Boom, give us the Matilda. It's like the classic thing. If you're giving us Leon, the Matilda is like the weapon that goes with that. And I do believe the weapon that he has is like almost like the one that shows up on like the pre-order stuff. I think it's like, I'm not like the biggest gun person, so hey, don't come at me on that, but isn't it the same gun that he had in the original RE2, or was that a different style? Maybe the SIG is shorter. I think he had like a regular, I'm calling it a regular size pistol, but maybe Ada was the one that had the SIG, and then he just had the Matilda. So give us the Matilda. They won't do this, but honestly, it was very rude that they didn't give us the PRL 412 laser cannon in the RE4 remake. So they should just throw that in there just to be like, our bad, because I don't understand that. Like, that's what we need. Also, this is probably even crazier because they definitely won't do this. The PRL 412 laser cannon is not going to show up. But even less likely than that is me getting the absolute miracle of the original mine thrower from RE4, because I hate the mine thrower in the remake. The original mine thrower is like a million times better than me. I do not like the mine thrower in the new one. I mean, technically it's the bolt thrower. It's a crossbow and then you get the mines, but the old mine thrower was like one of my favorite weapons in that whole game, especially with the final upgrade where it had the homing missiles. I'll never forget PS2 jankiness. I shot a homing arrow and there were enemies around the corner. The homing arrow clipped through the wall and hit the dude literally around the corner. And I was like, this game's amazing. This is absolutely phenomenal. It's like just ridiculous stuff. Like it literally, the homing missile clipped through the corner of the wall and hit the dude on the side. And I was like, I love this. This is the best weapon ever. So that won't ever happen. The laser cannon, of course, won't happen either, but I'd love to see them both. I wouldn't mind it if we got quite a few weapons from, they'd most likely be from the remakes and possibly, 7 and 8 if they wanted to do that. Everything's on the engine. This is one of the things I've referenced before as to, like mercenaries mode should be the online component. Everything's within the same engine. They could just throw it all together. But another thing is that if everything's in the same engine, all the weapons should be unlockables. Like we should have all sorts of stuff. Like the single action army, that should totally be in this game. That should be an unlockable weapon. I assume, obviously, well, actually Leon has the axe. He doesn't have the knife this time. Because I was going to say if he has the knife, we could get, we all, call it like the butter knife, but, the hot knife from RE3, that could totally go in there, and then you just make it like a ridiculously overpowered blade. But unfortunately, he has the axe. We'll see how that plays out. It's not like you can't have a knife at all. Grace could easily have it, and then you could still throw it in there. Once again, these are things that, unfortunately, that's why this is more like just what we want to see, because sadly, I don't think any of this stuff is going to happen where I'm like, hey, you think it would be super easy, because technically, a lot of those weapons should have been in RE4 Remake as well. I mean, I've mentioned this before, I think, but one of the things that annoys me the most with RE3 Remake is that in Resistance, you get all the weapons that are in RE2, and you can play as Jill. She has the animations because everything's all the same. It's just rigs, in the same engine. So you can play as Jill using all these weapons from RE2, and for whatever reason, they just never decided to at least do something with the game and make it a little bit better, and just throw a bunch of weapons in from Resistance and be like, hey, here you go. Here's the minigun. Here's, the single action army. All this stuff is on the same engine. They could throw these weapons in. Everything Chris had, having like the crazy, once again, they will, just having like the random laser sight and just dropping bombs on people. That would be an insane thing for them to throw in. It will never happen, but that would be amazing. Who knows? I'm sure there are going to be some big open areas. I mean, we're going to be in Raccoon City. There's going to be a lot of open space, I'm sure. But just about every weapon can show up. And we had the buzzsaw in RE7. They can just upgrade it straight to a full-on chainsaw. They easily could. Obviously, it would be different mechanics and stuff, but it's not like they haven't given us a bladed weapon before. They've literally given us a lightsaber that could change colors, and each color has a different effect. If they can do a buzzsaw and a lightsaber, they can do something wild. And I hope they do, because that's something that, if there's one thing that is missing, I personally would say, from RE4, it's the sillier side of the unlockables. I feel like 7 and 8 got great things. Like the buzzsaw is a really good one. That's like the most powerful weapon in that game for anyone that doesn't know that. And then RE8, like I said, you have to do a lot of stuff to get it, but you literally get a multicolored lightsaber. Like it's insane. And then 4 comes out, obviously 3 is its own thing, and 2 had a lot of unlockables, but nothing like in the realm of like, that's just a crazy weapon. Even the buzzsaw was fairly grounded, for RE7, but it was still like, oh, that's a cool unlockable because that's not in the game. It's in that one portion, I think. Actually, this just dawned on me because I'm stupid. You use a chainsaw in that boss battle when you fight against Jack. The animations are there. It's a different character, I understand, but it's there. And that's probably where they pulled the chainsaw from anyway, honestly. Like, they probably just updated that for 4, and then they just updated it again for 9. So it's probably all the same chainsaw. So in a weird sense, we've probably used this chainsaw that we have, just an older version of it with like slightly different code. We've kind of already did it ourselves and actually used that chainsaw in RE7. So they could do it again. They could make that an unlockable, and I really hope they do. I genuinely, that's like the number one thing where I'm like, I really hope this happens, because that would be insane if they did it, and it would also be absolutely amazing. But we should get some sillier stuff. Like, I would love to see them do something that's just like a crazier weapon. Do some, they literally did a lightsaber, but do something new, do something really crazy. I don't know if, something that I think would be interesting, and this might happen, and this is, of course, once again, going off of Resident Evil 3, even though we don't have the knife, so we can't get the hot knife, even though we might, with Grace, by, at some point in the game, she'll probably end up picking up a knife. So if they don't do that, Leon still does have an axe, and they could go crazy and be like, all right, here's like, much like unlocking the primal knife in RE4, where it's like, hey, this is for combat, of course, mostly for deflections and stuff like that, unless you're in mercenaries mode. But even though it's for deflections, here's the unlimited version, and then you can go really crazy with it, because the knife is fairly strong once it's fully upgraded, especially on weaker enemies. So you can start doing some much crazier things if you want to. We could easily have that again in this game. It would just be with the axe. And if they want to make, if the axe doesn't end up being like the knives anyway, where we don't have to worry about damage or anything like that, then it could be like Resident Evil 3, where it's like, okay, it's just a classic knife, in this case an axe, but here's like the weird super version. It's like this, the heated axe, the hot axe or whatever. And then it's like 3 times the damage, or just something wild like that, just upgrade something just to make it really weird. So I hope that's an unlockable. Costume wise, it's really hard to say what we should truly expect from it, but I'm looking forward to like costumes for sure. Like it's hard to say, but I'm okay if I don't see RPD Leon. Personally, if they really wanted to be cool, they would do like an OG RE4 jacket, because I like his old jacket way more than I like the new one. And I wish that they did something akin to Dead Space. Dead Space did this, and like nobody did. Once again, something Resident Evil did a long time ago when they did those PS1 things. Resident Evil has the capability to pull it off. They've somewhat done it before, but Dead Space, the remake for that, they had like the 360 costume, and it was just like slightly blurrier, and it was like, that's super cool. And it was like the original costume from the game. And they could totally do that if they wanted to. And I wish RE4 had that, where it's like, hey, here's like, you know, not exactly PS1 blockiness, of course, but here's like old PS2 style. I mean, honestly, the game's been updated 100 million times. They easily could have figured some way out to have like a high def version of his OG costume, his original 4 jacket. But I don't expect that to happen at all. But I think his 4 jacket should show up. Honestly, I would almost guarantee it. He's wearing like a similar jacket that even has fur on it, or, you know, sheep wool or whatever. So I'm like, it's almost guaranteed his RE4 jacket is going to be in there. So that's not even, you know, like when I realistically think about it, I'm like, it's almost guaranteed it's going to be in there. Like, you basically just change the color of his current jacket now from black to brown and just throw like a couple little lines in there for the wool. It's the same thing. So that's almost guaranteed. Like I said, my main thing would be, I would love to see them do it where you have the option to remove the jacket, so it's just like the undershirt. That would be kind of cool too. Although I don't know if it would just be the plain undershirt, or maybe he'd have like, you know, I think he would have whatever he's wearing in this game. It wouldn't revert to what his actual, like his harness setup would be in 4. It wouldn't be that harness setup anyway. So we'll see how all that ends up panning out. He'll probably lose the jacket. That's like a classic thing at this point in Resident Evil. Like a lot of the characters, at least the third person games, you know, they've been doing that forever, where it's like, all right, you go through this and you're either injured with Leon, or actually, I don't even remember what they did with Claire in the. They may not have done anything for Claire in the original, because no, she took her vest. Yeah, that's what it was. She lost her vest. I forgot she had the jacket. So in my head, all I was thinking of was the vest. So I'm like, I don't even know what they did in the remake. But she took off her vest, and then in the remake, they gave her the jacket. So, you know, you always lose something, or additionally add something to your costume. Jill adds, you know, most likely you grab the extra harness, so she has like the green setup on throughout like most of RE3, once you get to like the clock tower and stuff. So, you know, just about every game does that. At some point, something switches up just a little bit, at least. So we'll see what they do. I assume he won't have the jacket 100% of the time. I'm sure Grace is not just going to be booking it in a t-shirt and jeans, like for however long the game is. I'm sure her costume's going to change too. So I'm curious about that one. And they have like the apocalyptic costume for her. Like I said, the Lady D costume. It would be hilarious. They probably won't do this, but it would be super funny if they made it where if something weird happens, like you take damage, the hat flies off. Like Mr. X from the remake, where you can shoot his hat off. That'd be super funny. They won't do that, but it'd be great. And then they just put something in the options menu where you just reset the hat. That would be the most hilarious thing they could ever do. But it won't happen. But just think of that as a random thing. Like, it would be so funny if, especially with the little bit I've seen from Grace, if there's just a scene where she's just falling all over the effing place, or you get hit by an effing medical cart and the hat just goes flying. That would make for some hilarious pictures. I hope they do that. I don't think it'll happen once again, but that would be amazing. I would love to see them do that. But to end this one out, we have to go unlockable modes, because aside from costumes, aside from all the weapons that I want to see, the enhancements to whatever weapons that we're going to end up actually getting in the game, we got to have something unlockable. The big question, of course, with RE9, it is the 30th anniversary game. We gotta have more than Leon. Personal opinion, like, I think everyone needs to have some sort of connection to this game, even if it's in references. Like, I don't expect Barry to show up, you know, being super duper old and punching somebody or doing anything, honestly. I mean, the dude's old as hell. But we gotta have references to like everybody in this game. And they won't, once again, this is just a hope or a dream. It probably would be impossible to expect this unless I paid for it myself. But if they did like what they did on the 3DS, where it was the mercenaries mode, and eventually they added it to RE5 anyway, although they didn't add Claire. They added Barry and Sherry, or not Sherry, Rebecca, sorry. But they never did Claire. So if they did it where it was just, here's everybody. Here's just mercenaries mode, and here's just everybody. That would be the greatest thing on earth. I don't think there's any way that they would do that for a multitude of reasons, but they could. And in all honesty, the craziest thing is, it's super simple, because it seems complicated where it's like, oh man, we haven't had, Claire in a game since Revelations 2 and stuff like that. But Claire has animations from raid mode. Just steal them from there. They'd have to remake them, of course, and make new rigs and everything. But well, they wouldn't have to make new rigs. They would have to reanimate the rigs they already have. They'd have to update them to be like, okay, well now Claire from RE2 is doing kicks and flips and crap. But they could just take all the old moves and just reuse them. And technically, that's what they did anyway. Like some of the moves from the old Mercenaries 3D game, and I think even for Barry and Rebecca in RE5, were just taken from other characters in other games anyway. So just bring them back. It's been 100 million years. They could do it again. No fuss, no muss, no fuss. Just throw them all in there, just because. And then it's like the ultimate Mercenaries mode, where everybody's in. At least the classic characters. I wouldn't expect them to put like literally every character, but you got Leon. Give me Jill, Chris, Leon, Claire. That, and obviously Grace would be in there as the 5th character. But if we're doing that, just give us those 5. Give us like the first 4 main protagonists and then the current protagonist, and I'm set. I'd be super happy with that. Once again, I think that is a hope beyond hope that I don't really think is possible. But there's got to be something. There's some unlockable mode. That's the real tricky part. What is the unlockable mode? Because I have the utmost faith, because it's the 30th anniversary game. So I'm like, as they say, they're gonna put their foot in it. I really hope. I'm not expecting this to be an RE3 situation. I'm expecting it to be more of RE4. Like, I think they got it. They know what to do. They know what to focus on. I don't think there's any chance on earth that we're getting another online component unless they magically do what I've been saying for years. Just make it mercenaries mode, and just make it all the levels from all the games, and just throw everything together and just figure it out from there. This character can't do this. Oh well, just pick that character anyway and fight whoever you want. Like, that's what they should do. They should just just make that and just be like, hey, some stuff isn't gonna gel perfectly. Who cares? Just do it. So I would hope that's the case. Mercenaries in general, not even the online mode, because once again, somewhat impossible. But I hope they bring mercenaries mode back. Even crazier dream, classic mercenaries, RE3 style mercenaries, where you go from point A to point B. Really don't see that one happening either, but that would be amazing. And once again, we have to wait and see exactly how the game plays out. Like, I probably have more guesses based on the actual maps. Once again, staying away from the trailers, I probably have a little bit better concept with the newest trailer, but there's a lot there that I'm just like, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the map looks like. We'll see what, Raccoon City actually looks like, and how the actual play space is once we're there. And then it'll be like, yeah, I could see this as a mercenary map. I mean, like, they did a bunch of crap with the Umbrella Core game, as crappy as that is. They've done a lot, so we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. But that's where I'm going to end it. I know I've been all over the place, because that was kind of the point of this one, talking about things that might actually be realistic, things I hope we actually get back, things they can do, sillier things that I don't think will happen. I want my laser cannon. I still get a little bit annoyed by that. I'm like, they did not put, I know I wasn't the only person. I'm like, okay, Separate Ways is coming. We'll get the laser cannon. And they said no. Crazy. Absolutely insane. So I want my laser cannon, even though I don't think it's going to happen. I want my effing laser cannon. But I would love to know what unlockables you guys would like to see in Resident Evil 9. It is the 30th anniversary. I think being crazy about it is what we should be doing. Honestly, everything we want is what we should get. It's the 30th anniversary. We've been paying a bunch of money. How many times have you bought Resident Evil 4? I've only bought it once. So that's just me personally. I've only bought it once. But how many times have you bought it? It's been out there for a long time. So I would love to know your thoughts. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.